Marcus had spent years making his lawn perfect. Every blade of grass had been nurtured by his own hands, watered with patience, mowed in precise patterns until it looked like something out of a magazine cover. For Marcus, it wasn't just a yard. It was a reflection of everything he had worked for. That's why the first time he heard the crunch of tires tearing across his grass, something inside him snapped. It was early Tuesday morning. Marcus had just poured himself a cup of coffee when the roar of an SUV engine cut through the calm. He looked out the window just in time to see Karen's shiny new SUV swing wide around the corner, and then drive straight across his front lawn like it was a shortcut. Grass tore under her tires, clumps of dirt flying. Marcus's jaw tightened. He put his coffee down, grabbed his jacket, and walked outside. Karen's SUV had already pulled into her driveway across the street. She stepped out, sunglasses perched on her head, not a care in the world. "Karen!" Marcus called, trying to keep calm. She turned, one hand on her hip. "What?" "You just drove through my yard," Marcus said. Karen shrugged. "The street's too narrow. I'm not about to scratch my car because of your grass. You should thank me for keeping traffic moving." Marcus blinked, stunned. "That's not how this works. Stay off my property." Karen smirked, got back in her SUV, and shut the door. Marcus repaired the damage, tamping the soil down, reseeding where the tires had torn deep grooves. He hoped, foolishly, that it was a one-time thing. But the next morning she did it again. This time she didn't even slow down, bouncing over the curb and tearing past the flower bed Marcus's late mother had planted. Marcus called the HOA and filed a complaint. A week later, instead of help, he received a letter. A fine. A fine for putting up a small "keep off the lawn" sign. That was when Marcus realized the game was rigged. Karen wasn't just a neighbor. She was the HOA president. She was the one deciding which complaints mattered. Weeks passed. Karen kept using his lawn as her shortcut. Neighbors started noticing, whispering. Some told Marcus to let it go. Others secretly hoped he'd do something. Marcus didn't yell or start a fight. He just repaired the damage and waited. But every time he saw those tracks, a quiet storm built inside him. Karen had no idea how patient Marcus could be when he was planning something big. By the third week, Marcus's front yard looked like a battlefield. No matter how many times he patched it up, Karen's SUV carved fresh wounds through the grass every morning. Neighbors started to take sides. Mr. Jenkins from next door muttered that Marcus was overreacting about some grass. But Mrs. Alvarez from down the block left Marcus a note. "If you do something about her, I'll bake you a pie." Marcus stayed quiet, but inside the anger was boiling over. He had been through enough in life to know when someone was testing him, and Karen was pushing him to the edge. One night, after seeing fresh tire tracks again, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, staring at the mud smeared across his driveway. He took out a notebook and started sketching. By midnight, the plan was clear. Marcus wasn't a violent man. He wasn't looking for a fight. But he had served 2 tours overseas. He had built forward operating bases in the desert with nothing but scrap metal and determination. He knew how to make things secure, and he was done playing defense. The next morning, Marcus went to the hardware store. He bought steel spikes, thick, heavy-duty ones used for securing construction equipment. He bought gloves, tools, and rolls of sod. When night fell, Marcus went to work. He dug shallow trenches across the strip of grass Karen always drove over. Carefully, he laid the spikes down, angled just right so they sat just below the surface. Then he replaced the sod, tamping it down so it looked untouched. It wasn't meant to hurt her, just her car. As he worked, Marcus felt a calm settle over him. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. The next morning, Karen came flying around the corner like always. Marcus sipped his coffee from the porch, waiting. There was a pop, pop, pop like fireworks, followed by the sound of air rushing from her tires. Karen's SUV skidded to a halt halfway across Marcus's yard, all 4 tires flat. She jumped out, screaming, her face red with rage. "You did this!" she shouted, pointing at Marcus. Marcus didn't move. "I told you to stay off my property," he said calmly. Now you can explain to the tow truck driver why you were trespassing." Neighbors came out of their houses. Phones came up recording. Karen's shouting turned into a full-blown tantrum. But no one stepped in to help her. For the first time, Marcus saw fear flicker in her eyes. Karen's SUV sat in Marcus's yard for hours, 4 tires deflated like dead animals, until the tow truck finally dragged it away. But Marcus knew this wasn't the end. Karen wasn't the type to back down. She was the type to double down. And sure enough, the very next day, Marcus found a letter taped to his front door. Notice of violation. Lawn destruction, public disturbance, malicious damage to property, threatening HOA member. Marcus read it twice and laughed. An actual, dark laugh that made his dog tilt its head. They think they can scare me with paper? That night, Karen came back, this time on foot, with 2 other HOA members. Marcus watched from his porch as she paced back and forth on the sidewalk, pointing at his house and shouting about community standards. He didn't say a word. The next morning, Marcus called an old friend, a fellow Navy SEAL who now worked as a security consultant. "I've got a problem," Marcus said simply. By the end of the day, his house was covered with cameras, hidden ones in the bushes, motion sensors along the fence line, and a new system that sent alerts straight to his phone. 2 days later, the cameras caught exactly what Marcus expected. Karen and one of her HOA buddies stepping onto his lawn in the middle of the night, taking photos, measuring, and, unbelievably, trying to pry one of the spikes out of the ground as evidence. Marcus downloaded the footage, made 3 copies, and emailed one straight to the police department. Trespassing was trespassing, no matter who was on the HOA board. When the officer showed up the next morning, Karen's smug face finally cracked. "She's been vandalizing my property for weeks," Marcus said, handing over the USB drive. "Now she's trying to tamper with my security measures. I want to file a report." The officer nodded and took the statement. By afternoon, Karen was served with a formal warning. The HOA had to call an emergency meeting, and neighbors who had been quietly annoyed with Karen for years suddenly had a reason to speak up. "She drives through my yard, too," one man admitted. "She fined me for having Christmas lights up too long," another neighbor said. It was like a dam breaking. Years of resentment against Karen spilled out. And Marcus realized something important. This wasn't just about his lawn anymore. Karen had made enemies everywhere, and now she had just united them all against her. Karen showed up at the next HOA meeting like a queen returning to her throne, waving papers and shouting, "These spikes are dangerous. They're a hazard to children," she cried. "This man is a threat to our neighborhood and must be fined." But this time the neighbors didn't nod. "You're the reason he put them there," one man said. "You've been driving through his lawn for months." Karen turned bright red. Before she could answer, Marcus stepped forward. "Let's clear this up." He clicked a small remote. The projector lit up with night vision footage of Karen crouching on his lawn, trying to pull up a spike. Gasps filled the room. "This isn't about safety," Marcus said calmly. "This is harassment. And now it's criminal trespassing." Karen stammered, but Marcus dropped a folder on the table. "These are statements from neighbors you've bullied for years. And this," he held up another paper, "is a petition to remove you from the board. We have enough signatures." The room broke into applause. The HOA president finally stood. Effective immediately, Karen is suspended. "We'll vote on removal next week." No one came to Karen's defense. She stormed out, slamming the door. But she wasn't done. She sent Marcus a legal threat, claiming emotional distress. Marcus called his lawyer. 2 months later, Karen wasn't just off the HOA board. She was facing charges for trespassing and harassment, and Marcus's countersuit for property damage left her drowning in legal fees. The neighborhood felt lighter without her. People waved when they passed. Kids played in the street. The community felt alive again. One morning, Marcus sat on his porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. Angela joined him. "It's quiet," she said. "That's how it should be," Marcus replied. Karen had tried to run over his lawn and his dignity. But Marcus hadn't just defended his home. He'd reminded everyone that respect mattered, and now everyone knew exactly where the line was.